Hello everyone and welcome back. So Phyrexia will be 1 is now full spoiled, and it's that part of the year where we should review the card of the new set expansion. So we have two main mechanics in this set, which are Toxic and Corrupted. I believe that none of these two are actually playable in Constructed, at least Pauper, because they haven't really printed anything relevant at common level with these two ability. Toxic is just the poisonous ability from the Poisonous Sliver, the 1 mana green Sliver. So when the creature deals combat damage, it assigns 1 or more poison counter on player, and Corrupted is a mechanic relying on the poison counter. So if the opponent has 3 or more poison counter, then the creature, the spell, or anything else with Corrupted do that thing. So regarding Pauper, what new common cards that may be playable we have? Well, there's also Phyrexia as a mechanic, and is kind of a living weapon, but the token is a 2/2 rebel creature instead of a 0/0 charm, so the token is better, but the equipment is probably worse since it's generating a better token, so it's probably giving a weaker bonus, or maybe it costs too much mana, so it's probably not really playable in Constructed. Well, first thing is I'd like to talk also about Intercrination Attendant. The card is not really great because it costs 4 mana to put on the battlefield a 3/4 creature, so it dies from Galvanic Blast, and also it can't Charm Block, Mirror Enforcer, so is weak against the 2 most played decks. But since it says when this creature enters on the battlefield, you may return another permanent you control, and if you do that, you create 1/1 token, is kind of Korski Fisher on steroids. Yeah, it costs 2 extra mana, it doesn't fly, but has a slightly better body. It also generates another body, and it's just a card advantage creature that you want to play in something like a Gates deck with Japanese Spectre, Spear Supplies, or whatever. I mean, it can generate value and is probably better compared to Guardian of the Guildpath in this metagame. So maybe you just want to stick 1 or 2 copies just for the extra card advantage. Alright, also if you play Basilisk Gate, you are also creating two creatures that you are able to target with Basilisk Gate, so very powerful. Nah, I'm just joking, but the card is cool. At least it will be cool in a Pauper format if Modern Horizon cards were never printed. Modern Horizon or Commander Legends cards were never printed. Alright, there's also an equipment sub-team in this expansion, but the only 2 common cards that you maybe want to play in an equipment deck are not so good, probably because they cost 3 mana and they do match even if you equip them. So I guess that the Lionel Lightbringer and the red one aren't good enough for the current Pauper. Then we also have 2 mana to 1 creature with a lifelink, which may be cool in a Mardu or Earth of Artifact build. Is similar to Glazefin because when you land an artifact on the battlefield, it gets a temporary bonus, but this one, instead of having flying as lifelink, so it may be better against aggressive strategies, and it gets only +1/+1 instead of +2/2, so it's clearly weaker when it just comes to deal damage. And also it's white, and as I already said, Mardu, because probably also haven't thought it may play Dispute and Fontaine. It may be probably not good enough, so why not add red for Galvanic Blast and Experimental Synthesizer, since anyway you are playing an artifact build, and just adding more cards that are good in artifact death may be just the right decision. Anyway, the card is no way to be competitive as any other artifact card you maybe want to play in an affinity deck, since we aren't even playing Glazefiend anymore in affinity. There was a certain period of time when Glazefiend was a kind of staple, but the card is just weak, and now we have King Artificer, which is probably better, both as an aggressive threat and a channel blocker. Then we have Vanish into Eternity, tapping 3 mana to exile a non-creature, non-land permanent is just too much, I believe, and also tapping 6 mana to exile one creature. Well, I'd rather not do that. Probably it's just a sideboard card if you want to exile something like Blood Fountain and Journey to Nowhere. I'm not sure. The card doesn't seem right to me. Then in blue we have at last a couple of cards, I guess. The first one I want to talk about is Prologue to Phyrexia. Prologue to Phyrexia is a sort of alternative win con in Flicker decks. The card is probably better on Magical Line than in Pauper, because it requires a lesser amount of clicks compared to, an example, Save Draw the Dice in Familiars, or Rolling Thunder, or Global Horror in Tron. But in Pauper is probably better to stick on Rolling Thunder or Global Horror, just because you don't really need fast win condition, because if you win game 1 and if you are able to not die on game 2, you don't really need another win con. And also Prologue to Phyrexia doesn't really win the game in only in one turn, because you are required to cast it 10 times to get your opponent a 10 poison counter to kill them. So it's just a card that you maybe want to play if you don't wanna waste a slot to play Sage of the Eisen or Drop Horror, and is probably not so really powerful as a card by itself, but it's just broken when it comes to Flicker Loops, because you can't really prevent poison, and you can't remove poison counters, and Life Again doesn't do anything to poison counters. So poison is broken, and the card is kind of good only when you have a way to play it and maybe proliferate a bunch of times, or just bring it back with Ghost of Flicker. Okay, so in black we have 2 premier level spells. I think we should talk first about Anoint with Affliction, so I can also show my face again with my webcam. Anoint with Affliction is a corrupted card, but as I already said, corrupted is not really gonna work in Pauper, in constructed. So it's likely a removal spell just for creatures with mana value 3 or less, and tapping 2 mana to exile one Sacred Cat or an animated Draw Spot Bridge when it comes to Genku Artificer, I think is fine. In black, if you aren't playing, in example, blue or Agony Warp, is clearly better as a way to deal with the animated land from Kenku Artificer. And also, if you are playing a black-based mid-range or control shell, it of course is great because you can exile a Sacred Cat, so you aren't wasting another removal spell on their embalmed token. The card probably would be better years ago because Stormbound Geist was the most played blue sideboard card in Paris, alongside Hydroblast, of course. And right now Stormbound Geist sucks, but maybe sometimes we will be able to exile a Young Wolf from Boggle's sideboard. Anyway, the card could be played. I mean, exiling the Sacred Cat is great enough for the card to be considered at least in sideboard. It doesn't kill a Groomer Gangler, but for doing that, you have Annihilating Glare, and Annihilating Glare is probably the best 1-mana removal spell for Pauper, because Event Out is a sorcery speed spell. You can, as an additional cost, sacrifice an artifact. Also, it destroys any kind of creatures. Of course, unless the creatures has any protection or something else. You can sacrifice a Bolt of Whispers, an Echo Wellspring, or a Chromatic Star, or even a Kalni Garden token, because, you know, mono black with Deadly Dispute and Kalni Garden is a thing, so I guess that I just really want to play both 4 copies of Kalni Garden and 4 copies of Bolt of Whispers in my mono black deck with Deadly Dispute, alongside maybe 4 copies of Annihilating Glare, so I can reduce the amount of 2-mana removal spells like Chinar's Edict or Cast Down, and being able to kill an opponent Monastery's Whisper with only 1 mana. So just imagine, for example, landing on turn 2 Blood Fountain alongside Annihilating Glare. You are playing 2 spells and sacrificing 1 Blood token or Blood Fountain just to kill a Monastery's Whisper. Good enough to me. Since Monastery's Whisper costs only 1 mana, and I like to kill 1 mana creature with 1 mana removal spell. Very efficient. So we don't have anything else in black, I guess? Yeah, we don't have anything else. And also in red, there's only 1 card, and probably the only 1 card with the Mirrodin, that it may be playable in Pauper. Barbed Butterfist. So it's an equipment that leave a 2/2 token on the battlefield, and the bonus is kind of weak, but since the spell costs only 3 mana, and equipping a creature it costs only 1 mana, I think that is rather acceptable. So the card by itself is not really great, because creating a free 1 creature with 3 mana is not really great, but when it comes to artifacts, well, there's also Glintook, so you can play this particular equipment in a Boros synthesizer list, and if you need more creatures, you just bounce the equipment back with Glintook, and then leave 1 token on the battlefield. So both of your creatures maybe die from Fear Cannonade, but you know, sometimes it's better to just generate more tokens, and you can also jump block with those tokens. And of course, if you are playing something like Barbed Butterfist in Boros, you maybe want to play alongside these very aggressive equipment card creatures like Monastery Sweetspear or Seeker of the Way. So why I'm suggesting these prowess creatures in Boros with Barbed Butterfist? Because Barbed Butterfist is both a creature and a non-creature spell, so that means you can play a turn 1 Sweetspear and then trigger the prowess with another creature, and it's cool from my point of view. So then there's Bladegraft Aspirant, which is the other equipment related creature which I already said in the first part of the video. I believe that this card is too much costly to see in play in Pauper. And then we have Blazing Crescendo, which is just not good, because I mean tapping 2 mana to give only +3/+1 is not really great, because you aren't giving trample or anything else. Okay, you are exiling a card from the top of your library and you can play it, but it just costs too much mana, even for a mono red blitz deck. And probably mono red blitz is the only deck that maybe want to play that card. So I guess I believe we said everything necessary regarding both red and green, because there's nothing interesting in green. Regarding multicolored, we don't have any common multicolored card. We have a couple artifacts, a cycle of 1 mana Skull Bombs. These Skull Bombs are kind of cute, but I believe only the black one is kind of playable. All of those artifacts, you can sacrifice them to draw 1 card if you tap 1 mana, so you cycle them by tapping 2 mana, and have a 3 mana ability that you can activate only as a sorcery speed, and also cycles it, so draw you back a card. The biggest problem is that all of those abilities, excluding the black one, does nothing, at least in constructed. It costs too much and provide only a combat related buff or something similar. Example, the blue one bounce a creature, the white and a green provides a bonus in power and constitution. The red one costs only 2 mana and put on 2 oil token on 2 creatures. And then we have Draws Skull Bomb, which return 1 creature from the graveyard in hand. So similar to Blood Fountain, but doesn't create 1 blood token, and also return only 1 creature. So weaker compared to Blood Fountain, as we for the Pure Foes we need Blood Fountain, and probably you don't want to play it. Maybe if you are playing something like Rakdos with Jixen Infiltrator, because you can then play more than just 4 copies of Blood Fountain, and maybe you want to play 5 or 6 Blood Fountains. I believe that you don't want, but you may try to do something like that. Anyway, I think that those Skull Bombs are not near to be playable right now, at least in Grixis Affinity. Then we have Mere Kinsmith. Mere Kinsmith is good enough to be played in Altar Throne, because for 4 mana you can tutor 1 Mere Retriever from your deck, and then you can sacrifice the Mere Kinsmith with Ashnod's Altar, and then play Mere Retriever and sacrifice Mere Retriever, play again Mere Kinsmith, and tutor the second copy of Mere Retriever. So with only 1 copy of Mere Kinsmith, you are able to fetch from your library 2 copies of Mere Retriever, or even more. I mean, if you have enough mana, you can loop many Mere Retriever as you want from your deck. So you may want all your full set of Mirror Trigger in one turn, and then you can fetch them with Mirkinsmith. Not sure if Altertron needs more than 4 copies of Mirror Trigger, but now you can. So you can. There's nothing much else also beside Mirror Trigger as fetchable mirrors. Yeah, there are also shape-shifting creatures, but I guess that you don't want to play Masked Vandal in Altertron, also because we aren't playing that many creatures. Oh, Prophetic Prism is probably good enough to be banned in Pauper, or is just banned. sad thing, yeah. And finally, final part of the video, we have a cycle of 5 sphere land that are just better compared to Secluded Steppe and Barren Moor, because instead of choosing between cycling the card or landing a land drop, you first have the land in play, and then later on the game you can sacrifice it to buy another card, which is fine enough. And since it doesn't give you the change to choose between drawing or landing a card, is straightforward upgrade at least for monocolored decks like Mono Black Devotion, White Weenie, and occasionally Mono White Heroic. Yeah, but in the current Pauper, having something like Cycle Lands plus Bounce Land is not gonna happen so much, because most decks now want to play something like Artifact Bridges from Modern Horizon 2 or the Gates, because they may want to play Basilisk Gate or more than one color, and Autonomous Furnace and the other spheres are probably just good in monocolored deck for that reason, because you don't have enough room to slot any more tapped lands. Alright, yeah, 22 minutes video, and we talked about everything. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next week. So for some upload from my Twitch channel. So see ya and have a good weekend.